John, how are you this morning?
Doing great, guys. Thank you for having me. One of the best weeks of the entire year. It's nonstop fun, nonstop madness now.
All right, so let me so a little different because you were on the broadcast the other day with Georgetown and Creighton, which was a very interesting. Your guys' professionalism for how that game was being called or not called, I thought was like pretty spectacular because it was very mucky and teams couldn't get going. How good of a story did you find yourself getting caught up in? How good of a story Georgetown, the women's team, was in terms of making that run that they did? I know it came to an end against UConn, but did you find yourself like quietly wanting to root for them?
Well, Damon, yes, I did. And I'll tell you why. Because I lost my dad in late January and suddenly. And I was thinking about doing this job every day for him now. Mm. And I'm thinking about these young women who are playing so hard and so intensely and laying themselves out on the hardwood and out on the line to win and to find a way to win. And the way that they approach, if you're going to play the Creighton women, and this is the ultimate respect to Jim Flannery's program, you cannot take a playoff. Mm. You can't. If you take 3 minutes off in the game could be over. Mm. They could go on a 10-0 run. You're calling a timeout. You're down by 10. You could be fighting an uphill battle for the next 2 hours because they're so attentive to detail. They're so efficient. They're such a great shot-making team. And it just felt like, you know what it felt like? At some point, Creighton was going to be able to go on that run, that patented Creighton run. But Georgetown just kept breaking it up, possession by possession. And, I don't want to get, I don't want to make it even bigger, but I did feel as though it was this calling the game. Oh, this was a team that was honoring their late coach, Tasha Butts, who, for those, again, who don't know, passed away at 41, gone way too soon from cancer in October. Mm. This group of young women, 18 and 22-year-old women, went to her funeral service on Saturday before the season started. Mm. Got on a plane, flew down to Georgia Friday, drove 2 hours to get to the funeral service, went to the funeral service Saturday, got back on a plane, flying commercial here, figuring it out, landed Sunday, practiced for an hour, played a game Monday, ended up starting the season 9-1, their best start in years, get their first 20-plus win season since 2012. Now, if you don't believe in something higher based on this story, I was just thinking about them and how they were taking things play by play. And it was inspirational for myself and Kim Adams, my partner, who unfortunately lost her mom last summer. Mm-hmm. because all of us who have experienced loss, and this is what I love about this time of year, all of us who have experienced loss take things play by play, if not day by day. And that's how I called the game, and that's what I was watching on the court. And as a result, it became a human element. That is what makes this month magical. At the end of the day, what CBS and Turner do an amazing job of is they humanize March Madness. That it's more than just a player going for 25 points. We get to learn who that player is as a human being. And when a dream is coming true, and when you're overcoming adversity, that's the magic of this month. And I felt that with this Georgetown team.
Man, that's an unbelievable answer and story.
Talking to somebody that lost my father and my brother 2 years apart last 7 years. So I'm with you there. I wanted to lay out and let you do your thing as we change gears to men's.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you. I mean, just sharing that with us, John. And another kind of one of those stories you're talking about played out on the men's side as well with the Drake basketball team, with the DeVries family, where Coach DeVries lost his nephew. That was, an Arch Madness was a really big thing for that whole family. Obviously, Coach, D-Rock, as we call him around here, has a huge history in that tournament. And you could see the emotion there as well. And so I felt, having been around D-Rock a lot here in Omaha, I was
It's one of those guys I have a blind spot
Yeah,
for,
I was so
where I
happy
kind of get
for him.
irrational when it
Yeah.
comes to, he's a super guy.
But at the same time, I feel for this Indiana State team that had an incredible year. And 28 wins, has a great star and likable personality in Richie Avila. And you sit there and you go, is this team really going to get left out of the tournament?
Right. Well, that's the $1 million question. And it's a huge question for the selection committee to have to answer. And here's why. If Indiana State is left out of the tournament, then next season we should not be waking up day in and day out saying, what's the net today?
Yeah.
Because the Sycamores, they answer that bell with a net of 29, meaning they could play you anywhere right now, and it would be a quadrant 1 game.
Yeah.
So you break it up and you look at what they've done. Now they have 22 combined Q3, Q4 wins. But why is that? Committee, be smart. It's because nobody wants to play them. Nobody wanted to play them. Now Michigan State played them, and to their credit, beat them.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, because Michigan State won that game, they're not deeper on the bubble right now. Had they not won that game, I don't think we'd be talking about them in the same light. I don't care that they have a net of 24. They have more opportunities than Indiana State. The fact is they have 5 quad 2 losses. They've done nothing to help themselves in the second quadrant, the Spartans. But this team deserves to dance. This team would beat all of the high majors that are firmly on the bubble, in my humble opinion. But as we know, the history of this tournament seems to lean to the high major that went 18-13 rather than the team in Indiana State who went 27-6. So this is a big test for the committee. Why would this team win a game? Well, Tucker DeVries is an absolute bucket.
He is amazing.
Yes. As part of a top 25 KenPom offense. And you go from him to Wright, who can really shoot the 3, had 3 of them in the title game, 17 points. Darnell Brody, Darnell Brody was in the Big East at Seton Hall.
Mm-hmm.
He is a physical player, has been around the block. The guy's a grown man, okay? He could be a pro wrestler. They've got physicality, they've got shooting, and they've got a team that did what they could, okay? It's really, really hard to schedule when you're at a level like Indiana State. I wrote this last week about James Madison, and I'm so happy for the Dukes that they're making the NCAA tournament because they would have been left out if they did not win the Sun Belt. Mm-hmm. It's wrong. It's a big problem in college basketball right now because high majors don't want to play these teams. So they're trying to expand the tournament. All right? You want to expand the tournament? Go for it. But do not expand it past 76 teams. But if you're going to add 8 teams, let half of them be the teams like Indiana State in this role. Give the mid-major a chance to play the high major. Let's settle the debate on the court.
Mm-hmm. John, I'm glad you said that because I that's the argument I've been making all week for the mid-majors over the high majors that have had the opportunities. We know what Michigan State is, right? They had opportunities to play teams that are going to be in the tournament, and they were found wanting, right? Indiana State hasn't had hardly any of those opportunities outside of a Michigan State, for example. But my question, I guess, is why do you think we've arrived at this place where 18-13 or whatever in a major conference carries more weight than 28-6? Is it just that we're relying on the metrics a little too much? We see a Michigan State as a 24 or whatever it is they are and say, oh, well, they've got to be a tournament. Like, is that what's happened, or why do you think we've gotten to this point?
Well, the scheduling advantages that those high majors get are I think, one, coming to fruition here when we're evaluating these teams, because I do think that the net and the metric system really, really values the strength of schedule. Mm-hmm. But it's not an equal opportunity thing in college basketball. Okay? So you want to say a team tested themselves, right? You know, Creighton tests themselves. They play some teams that other teams would not play, mm-hmm. right? They went out to Nevada. They played a UNLV team that's ended up being, better than I think we originally thought. They They go to their MTs. They play at Colorado State, and the list. You play Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you go and test yourselves. Okay, that's great. That's great. How have we arrived at the point where the 18 and 13? The thing about it is, I want teams to test themselves, and I often think that, like, the Q4 win does you no good.
Mm-hmm.
In fact,
not near as much as a Q4 loss can hurt you.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Which is exactly why you should play the quad 1 or quad 2 team, Damon, is because if you do that, you're going to help yourself a lot more than you would ever harm yourself. This is why I don't get what coaches are like, I don't want to play anybody opening week of the season. Why? Why not? If you lose, we're like, they played somebody. It's a long season. They'll be fine. If you ever lost the Q3 or Q4, we'd be like, yep, they're done. Cooked. See ya. See you next year. Oh, that coach is on the hot seat too. But here's my thing. How have we arrived at this point? It's not just the metrics. Okay? Name brand matters. Name brand matters. Like it does to everything. And there's somebody out there right now that disagrees with me and that's rolling their eyes in their car or that doesn't like this take. But there's a human element to that committee room. And they answer at the end of the day to their television partner.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's up to Turner and Virginia and St. John's are on the bubble and Indiana State and Colorado are on the bubble, who do you think's getting into the NCAA tournament this Sunday?
Yeah.
It's nobody wants to hear it. We'll see. I hope I'm proven wrong, and I'll come back on this show and I'll give a public apology to the committee. But names matter. Rick Pitino's won 5 in a row. One of the wins was a good win, and now he's in the NCAA tournament. I'm happy for them. Good for them. I hope that they make it for their sake. But really, that they've won 5 in a row, and 3 of them are to teams named Georgetown and DePaul.
I'm going to reserve judgment on St. John because they could see Creighton in the Big East, and it's a tough matchup for the Jays. So I'm not going to sling any arrows. Sure. Let me ask you something, because this is interesting, and I get it. Auburn, I think, only has the one quad 1 victory, and I think they're 1-7 in quad 1 games. But it got us thinking, because we always talk about conference strength. Do you think you can better cap the middle of the Big Ten or the top of the SEC?
Wow. I could better predict.
Yeah.
Oof. I could better predict the top of the SEC. The middle of the Big Ten, all right? I mean, to me, it's like, God almighty. I don't even...
I just saw Arkansas and Alabama go down to the wire. Auburn can't beat anybody good. Kentucky, it's hard.
It's hard, Damon, but the middle of the Big Ten to me is like going into a chain restaurant and sitting there and looking at the menu and saying, well, this option's better for me nutritionally than that option. It doesn't matter. If you're at Applebee's and you're deciding between the quesadilla burger and the 3-cheese chicken penny Alfredo, then guess what? You should have stayed in your car if it was that hard of a choice, or if you think you're doing yourself a service by picking one over the other. That's like looking at the middle of the Big Ten. I don't know if one dish is better than the other. It's hard to explain. And they're not staked. Notice I said, and I love, hey, I'm good with half-apps, all right? Look at the subject matter. But here's the deal. Here's the deal, fellas. I know you're cackling. You might not even be able to hear me. The middle of the Big Ten is like that. We're not deciding between a T-bone and a porterhouse. These teams are just not particularly strong. And the league's going to get 6 or 7 teams. But and by the way, Nebraska, we said in the preseason, I came on your show. We talked.
Yes, you did.
You did.
I'm happy for the Huskers. I'm really happy for Coach Hoiberg. And Coach Hoiberg called his shot back at Big Ten Media Day. He said, I think this is my best team. He was damn right. He was absolutely correct.
Is he Coach of the Year in the conference? Or do you like Collins or Painter?
I give it to Hoiberg.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Hoiberg's my Big Ten Coach of the Year because that program hasn't been dancing in a decade. But the top of the SEC, Tennessee's number 1 for me. Kentucky's number 2. You know, you got Auburn there. You got Alabama's back to me. So the reason why it's easier is because Alabama can't buy a stop. And because Connect and Tennessee have separated themselves, Kentucky separated themselves. They're in their own tier. I do believe we'll see a Kentucky-Tennessee final. I think, though, to your point, Damon, it's that like 3-8 in the SEC too. It can be a little bit confusing. And I think part of it is you have some inexperienced teams that have surprised this year.
Mississippi State.
Yeah, Mississippi State, South Carolina. Like, I don't know how South Carolina's going to handle the postseason. I'm intrigued. I'm very happy for Lamont Paris. He deserves SEC Coach of the Year. He was given that honor. But how did Michie Johnson and company handle the stage now, the postseason, with a target on their back? Life's different. Life's different when you're unnoticed to now you're not going to surprise anybody anymore.
That's John Fanta. He is with the Field of 68. He's with College Basketball on Fox. John, incredible stuff as always. Hopefully in maybe a couple weeks we'll catch up with you again, see where we're at after that first weekend of the NCAA tournament.
Thank you, fellas. I think we'll get a UConn Creighton round 3 at the Garden this week.
Let's get it. Sounds great.
Let's do it. We appreciate it, John. Great stuff. That is John Fanta. He's with College Basketball on Fox and the Field of 68.
And he likes James Madison. How about that? He likes the Dukes. They're going to be tough.
I think he might have a soft spot for some Applebee's, too. He was going deep cuts on that menu. I appreciate that. Half-price apps got me through college. We got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.